There it goes.
Okay, there, I was getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
All right, um, that motion carries. All right, item number 4, BR&E program update.
Thank you, Julie. The East Bethel EDA has begun discussion for needed revisions to the current BR&E plan, which was adopted in 2016. As this program is 7 years old, it may be time to review and update the plan to reflect the new challenges faced by small businesses in the post-pandemic culture and the evolving business climate environment as it exists in 2023. The EDA is also interested in any ancillary programs that would complement and enhance the BRE. Christine Costello, our Community and Economic Development Representative for Connexus, attended our April 17th meeting and reviewed the services Connexus provides through their economic development programs and discussed what they may be able to offer in the updates of our BR&E program. Ms. Costello was scheduled to be present at this meeting tonight, but notified me on Thursday that she would be unable to attend the meeting, but would be present at the next one if we wanted her to be there. Michael Darger with the University of Minnesota Extension Service and one of the primary authors of the current BR&E plan will be with us tonight at our meeting. Michael's sitting over here. I think some of you probably remember him from 7 years ago.
Yep.
Michael will provide a review of potential updates and or kind of give us direction to what we can do with their current plan. Staff also met with the East Bethel Chamber of Commerce at their May 11th, 2023 meeting and updated the Chamber on the EDA's initiative to revisit our current BR&E program and requested their participation going forward with an update. By our June-July meeting, we can hopefully coordinate with Connexus, University of Minnesota Extension Service, and the East Bethel Chamber of Commerce regarding the focus of the plan and direction we need to take going forward. This time I'll turn it over to Michael and let him give us some updates on the previous program and maybe some ideas on what we need to do to update our current one or add any new twist to it to reflect what our current business climate is today. Michael.
Very good. And it looks like I've got 2 reports from last time. This is our BRE research report. Okay, try to speak into the mic. And then we had a little summary report. And what I have on my screen right now is these are both from 2016, is we did a ripple effect map out here 5 years ago, I think over in the senior dining room, whatever. And this is what we found. And this has way too small print, so, but we took the 4 kind of basic things that were in your BRE plan as of 2016, and we just looked at what happened. So, for instance, in marketing East Bethel was one of your big goals. Marketing East Bethel is a great place to live and work, workforce and residential recruitment. So we talked to the people who came to that session. There was about 20 or so of you and your citizenry, and these are some of the things they said. So, East Bethel job.com had been set up as a group, and then that went live in 2016. People were posting jobs, but it had been challenging to get people to send the postings in, and so on and so forth. And so what the ripple effect map is like, okay, you said you were going to try to do this, and what happened? And so these 20 or 25 people we had over lunch said all these things. So that's like way too much information. But as of 2 years past your launch of your last BRE, people collectively had felt some ripples had been emanating out in the East Bethel community. So I'm not going to bore you with all that, but that was the last time I was here, and it is it was gratifying to see what had happened as of 2018. So that's that. Now, I think you worked with our extension educator, Adil Ahmed, and he hasn't been here for 6 or 7 years, so I'm still running we now call it the Connecting Businesses and Community Program, but it's still Business Retention and Expansion. So we have that program available, which is what this is all about, and the ripple effect is, see if anything happened. Because you don't do all this work just to see nothing happen, right? So we were pleased, and Colleen Winter, about 3 years ago, she came to one of our classes that we teach on BRE, and she talked about some more stuff, and then she left a couple years ago as your community development director. So, far as we could tell, there was a pulse going from this thing from last time for 4 or 5 years. So kudos to y'all. And now here we are again. So, so we still have this program, but I talked to a fellow at The Ohio State University today, Mr. Joe Lucenti, who I saw at our national conference a couple weeks ago in Idaho, and he's been doing BRE like crazy around Lake Erie. So he's got a different approach than we do. So I talked to him today and said, you know, you have an interesting approach. So I'm prepared to talk about our program, Connecting Businesses and Community, but I can also tell you about what these people are doing at the Ohio State Extension. And he does a lot of BRE. So it's a slight, you know, it's a different approach that they use. Now, my colleague, Eric King, is not here tonight, but if you want someone to be on the ground with you the way Adil Ahmed was last time, who kind of did the coaching and, you know, kind of like, okay, we got to do this by this date. He was kind of
Coordinating.
yeah, right. So he was your guy. I'm not available, but Eric said, Eric has been on a job for 4 or 5 years, and he is now working with Northfield. He worked with Lonsdale a year or 2 years ago to help them with their BRE, and he helped me with People's Energy Company down in Orinoco with the BRE. So Eric's got some good experience, and he's available to help if the community wants to go forward with the BRE with Extension's help. Now, myself, I run the program overall, and we work with our team at UMD, and I think they did this research report for you, if I'm not mistaken. And they do a good job for us. Yep, University of Minnesota Duluth, Bureau of Business and Economic Research. They still like to on a team with us. So whether you would choose to do our traditional approach or do this Ohio State approach, there's still applied research reports involved, and we can do that. So at this point, I could tell you about, I could review kind of what our traditional program is about, and then I could tell you about this Ohio State approach and just kind of get the wheels spinning a little bit. And then just see what you think. So I know, and you were on the ground, and
Yep.
so Jack, I don't know if you were involved, but you were here. Yeah. So, and you were involved?
Mm-hmm.
And you were involved? Okay, yeah. He was on the leadership team, and you were kind of like general task force members, visitors of businesses, I think?
Yeah, I was on council at the time, and
Yeah, and we got all your names written down, so, we do that. It's a very transparent approach, and if you can't sleep at night, you just read the methods chapter for your BRE, and that'll help you get to sleep, But yeah, here's Doug Welter and Colleen, yourself, Sharon Johnson, Kathy Beeson, and Brian Rogers were the leadership team last time, and then a whole lot of other people. And we listed, you visited 43 businesses, face-to-face, and you had a task force. So, I mean, I could pass that around just as a review. So why don't I just show you the basic rubrics of.
But
Go ahead.
we were discussing, and anybody step in if you have anything, with not doing it for, or not having it done for 6 or 7 years, we were wondering if there's, say, a follow-up program that can be applied to it, to the traditional BNRE, that it may not be as big, but
Right.
something just follows it up, see how things are going,
Yeah,
see if there's new things that can be done. So I'm not sure if we want to do the traditional BNRE all over again. Maybe we do. We can discuss it. But that was kind of the premise of talking with you
Right.
and seeing
Well,
what programs you have to offer.
we don't have a follow-up program per se. We've got the big kahuna. And then we have a bunch of things on our little menu of stuff that no one has ever purchased. So they either do this or they do nothing. But the Ohio State thing is kind of in between.
Okay.
So why don't I just quickly review for people who are here?
Yeah,
download it.
review all of it, and
Yeah,
I just wanted to
right. So
let you know kind of what we were
Yeah,
looking for.
I mean, I like what I'm hearing. I downloaded this thing somewhere. Where did it go? I'll go to my downloads file. All right. Here you go. Okay, this is kind of the big picture of the traditional University of Minnesota approach. And this is what East Bethel did last time. So, I'm gonna make that smaller. So it's 3 big steps. Research, step 1, kind of get organized. Prioritize step 2, which is kind of after you've done all the data gathering of going out and visiting businesses face to face. And then implement step 3. You've done all those things since 2016. And so some of those teams I talked about and the stuff like now, this basic orientation, that's all, selecting an interview guide, which is what we call the survey, and going out, training people and sending them out and visiting businesses. And you visited 43 businesses last time. So that's step 1. A lot of work, pretty cool process, a lot of people involved. And then step 2 involves looking for individual kind of issues that individual businesses have. You can call those red flags, warning flags, green flags, call them whatever you want. But it's just about one company. And then we're looking for systemic issues like in that research report. And we have a whole process for that, so that research report's right in the middle there. And then this is the big moment where we had, retreat over dinner over here, and you picked a bunch of projects, and we wrote the little report that's inside that inside cover, and that's the one you kind of release to the public. But the big report's kind of like for the task force and the people like yourselves. It's kind of the insider report, right? Because that's got the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the happy report's the little summary report. And then you live happily ever after, and you come over here and you do a ripple effect mapping, which is what that ripple effect thing was. But the big thing is, get some things to happen on the ground. And you guys had picked 4 projects, and it looked like you had accomplished some stuff on all 4 of them. So that's the big picture of that. And let's see. I think I showed you that. There is a document. Nope, not that. Sorry, my documents are all over my computer. Let's try this. So, there's a bunch of roles, a bunch of hats that people wear. I mentioned the leadership team. That's the core kind of executive committee to help drive the whole thing. Then these are the different roles. On that leadership team, a person's in charge of the visitation to the businesses, a person is in charge of those big meetings, a person is in charge of red flags and responding to individual companies, and someone to get the publicity out to the community and the businesses that this thing's happening. And then there's a larger task force, and then there's people who just help you get the visits done. Again, that's a face-to-face method. We've never used like an electronic survey or a mail-out survey. But Ohio uses Qualtrics. They use an electronic survey, and then they send out visitors later to companies that want to be visited. So it's a fundamentally different approach, and it's pretty cool. But and then the business owners get involved, right? They actually get a visit. They actually every one of the businesses gets a visit, as you remember. So that's the process in a nutshell. Same price as last time, $12,000, and I think Connexus Energy, they're a longtime partner of ours, and I think they contributed $5,000 toward that fee. And I don't know if Christine, if there's a new sheriff in town, or whether she's doing it or not. But Bruce Saylor and Dwayne Ahrens, But I don't. Christine, it's funny because she did the program with us in Cottage Grove, and when I saw her in Richfield, they said no thanks. So I'm assuming she sounds like I read your notes. Sounds like she's very pro business retention and expansion, and she's picking up after a couple other. So Connexus goes way back with us. We've done a lot of programs, Big Lake and Coon Rapids and Vadnais Heights, all over the place. So that's kind of the big picture about our program, which still exists. And but why don't I tell you a little bit about the Ohio State approach? And let's see, I think I had there. Oh, and the other thing is we have an application form, so you need to kind of name all the people who are going to be part of it and everything, and then fill out this application. That's what Northfield's in the process of doing right now. They want to work with us because there's so many moving parts to this thing. We want to make sure everything's in place before we say go, So there's a little application. Let me go back to there you go. So this is the people in Ohio, they actually they don't target like a certain list of businesses. They want to get to all the businesses in the community. So I don't know how many businesses do you think have in East Bethel these days? 100, 200, 300?
Somewhere between 0 and 300.
Okay, more than 43.
Yes.
More than
Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of them are home businesses.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what the thing about the Ohio State thing is kind of cool, and Joe really wants to get to 20%. So he's putting out, if you partner with your chamber, partner with, a business association, yourselves, EDA, city, I don't know what else, service clubs, churches, places of, worship, whatever, places where you can get the word out. This would be kind of an open survey for business owners. And they usually post it for a month and a half or so. And they want to get 20%. So let's say it was 200. They'd want to get to at least 40 and probably more. And then everyone has an access to take the survey. Now, what they don't get is that automatic, here's an EDA member and, another business owner or a bunch of people from the community who go out there and visit the businesses. But if they want a visit, then they can request a visit after they do the original survey. And what he finds is that a lot of businesses request that personal visit. But you get the data from any business who wants to participate up front, and they use Qualtrics, which is like SurveyMonkey. That's what we use at the University of Minnesota, is Qualtrics as your electronic survey software. But this is their survey, and it's about, like our survey in that book, it's about 20 pages, minus the cover pages, it's about 18 pages of questions. So it's a long questionnaire. But this one's about 8 pages. And so this is one that Joe did in Ottawa County, which is right in Lake Erie. Just did it last year, as you can see. And they don't send it out paper, they don't mail it out. They don't send out visitors like we do in our program. They send it out electronically. They put it on the website. And so like city, the chamber, everyone would have it on their website. And if they have email lists, they could blast it out to email list of business owners. So it's more of an open, non-scientific, well, we never get to enough businesses to call it a scientific sample anyways. I mean, you can call it a scientific sample. What we usually get 30, 40, 50 visits done. So we can never get to any kind of statistical significance or representativeness to the population. That's never been the point of our BRE program. I don't think Joe's really getting that so much in Ohio either. But the nice thing is here is that you can get the thing out there and get a lot of responses pretty quickly. And then, we can start working on a report, whatever. And then meanwhile, if there's red flags or if there's issues that are identified as the city and the leadership team, whoever the active members of the BRE are, they find issues and say, we better go visit East Bethel Boat Company. We better go visit the ice rink because these people are saying some things they're not happy or they got an issue. So they say, hey, would you like us to come out and visit? Or the business itself could say, we want a visit. That's one of the questions in the survey. But as you see in this electronic survey, they're asking about basic things about the local business environment, and then they have, the cost of doing business. So these are more business climate questions. Here's one on employment workforce, right? Employment and training. So they have several questions about the number of employees and the quality of the workers and, training needs. This is similar to questions we have in our standard survey. Future plans, very important section. Notice how it's in the middle of the survey. You don't start asking their future plans right away. You try to get them warmed up on some more basic stuff. So they're asking about, what kind of retention expansion type of concerns. So that's another section. I haven't even looked at this. I just got it today, but I just think his approach gives you another thing to think about. General information about the company, what sectors and kind of where they fit in on industry, and that's it. So that's that is like 7 or 8 pages. That's 9 pages. So that's about half the size of our survey, and he gets a pretty good response rate. I've never tried doing an electronic survey. We've always said, nope, we're sending people out face to face. There's a whole diplomatic angle to that, like you're sending volunteers out, and there's something about that. The volunteers get to actually listen to that business owner, and there's something that you just can't replace with an electronic by doing that. But they're offering to send people out to visit the business after the fact. So it kind of is a two-step approach. And, so that's his survey. And then, here's an example of a report. This is quite a old report, but, he does a report. He doesn't just make it about red flags. So this is a report from about 10 years ago, and it's about a 22-page report from a different place in Ohio. And, they're getting in some of the same stuff we do, which is, what did we find out about local business environment, workforce, employees. So they report out the results of the electronic survey. And, their report's not as robust as the report you see there. But it's a pretty robust report. So, our program actually started in Ohio. So the guy who founded this program 30 years ago, George Morris, rest in peace, he died 2 years ago. He's the founder of our Minnesota program. And so it's been here 30 years. And he was at Ohio State before he was here. So there's some of George Morris in that program and some in this program. They're both good programs. So if you're interested in doing something like that, we could talk about it. I don't have a price for you or whatever, but, depending on what you wanted, it's going to be probably somewhere between $9,500 and $12,000, and it just depends what you want to do. I just want to kind of give you two options. We don't have a standard follow-up thing, but this is an interesting approach because you can put it out to every business, any business in the community could respond, and then you guys could choose you could decide whether you're going to promise to visit the ones who say, I want to visit. Probably, let's say 70 responded. They're probably not all going to say they want to visit. But if they all did, well, then you'd have a lot of work to do. But usually it's a fraction of the ones who, unless there's some kind of raging fire going on in East Bethel right now, like, they're all mad about something, and you could say, you could identify that. I think it would be some percentage. So it gives you a chance to, well, one, you won't have to have as many people involved up front. Because, if you're trying to do the same amount of visits as last time, we send the people out in teams of 2, and there's 43 visits, and that's a lot of people. Because if everyone did 2 or 3 visits, and there's 2 people per team, you need about 40 people to get that much work done. With this approach, you could probably have a smaller team and still make a nice follow-up, kind of what's going on in 2023 with your businesses type of assessment.
And I'm sure if we want to take the Ohio program and adapt it a little bit to, instead of just sending the surveys out, we go interview in person. We could do that, or however we want to get the information.
If you were going to interview in person, I'd just say go with our big survey, because if you can do all the work to do that, you might as well go with the big kahuna, because that thing, our survey, we call it an interview guide. It's been around a long time. We have a lot of benchmark data, and we can compare it to East Bethel last time. We compare it to all several, we've been tracking data since like '94. But yeah, we can modify. We could take this basic approach, and if there's questions that you have about whatever in East Bethel, we can layer those in there. So,
Michael, other than the differentiating factor of the methodology of the inquiry, starting with an electronic survey rather than in person, are there other points about the Ohio State program and what differs from what you normally do? And also, what do you see lacking in this approach?
Yeah, I think that they have one report, and I'm not sure what kind of strategic action planning they do, but we use the 2-report system. Like I said, like the big good, bad, and ugly report is kind of really to get the wheel spinning. And for you, and that's about an 90-page report. Some of it's boilerplate, but most of it's based on what we find in the data gathering with, and then we use that to come in and have this, 3.5-4 hour meeting, and could be shorter than that. But with retreats, you need a certain amount of time to let people kind of circle back. I mean, Roseville tried to do it in 2.5 hours once, and we had to cut people off. They couldn't circle back. You know what I mean? A retreat is different than a standard EDA meeting. You need time to kind of noodle and cogitate and circle back, and some people are shy and it takes a while to smoke them out, all that good stuff. So we have quite a process there. I don't know what process Joe uses, but Joe's pretty good at He says the customers are pretty happy, you know, these suburbs and counties that he works with. So you know, they're similar in a lot of ways. I think some of the rubrics might be.
I'd be interested to know feedback from some of those communities that have done that approach and what their thoughts are. Personally, I think the approach in starting out with electronic survey might have I can see why there's a better response rate.
Yeah.
I think it more corresponds to how people are currently operating in
Right.
terms of responses. And I'm familiar with Qualtrics. We use it at the university I work at. It's a very sophisticated program, so I can see why they would be using it for something like this.
Yep. Yeah, I'm using Qualtrics. I've moved on to business succession and transition. That's my main, that's what I carry the torch for nowadays. So I'll still do BRE, CBC with communities, but, you know, like I said, it's a 30-year-old program. We've improved it along the way and everything. But what I'm really interested in now is how do we get businesses that are owned by people my age? I'm 63, I'm a younger boomer, and others. It's not just about boomers, and it's not even, I mean, there's a lot of people from the greatest generation, the one ahead of the boomers, who are still running their businesses. Some of them want to die in their business, that's fine, but like, you know, to the extent that we can transfer those businesses, that's what my issue is right now. And I'm using Qualtrics and a paper-based survey right now. We have, as of today, we have 307 or 308. I'm not the best at using Qualtrics, but we have a huge response from businesses across the state on that issue. And we have all 87 counties. I'm pretty sure I have some East Bethel companies on the list, but it's a scientific sample. And we're finding out what is it that is, where are people at in their business succession and transition journey? What are their attitudes? What are the goals and aspirations? And what have they done? I mean, like, are they spending any time on this issue, or they got their head in the sand? So we're just kind of doing some basic assessment, and we're going to share that with DEED and economic developers and, you know, business development people around the state, and I'm doing workshops and stuff. So that's related to business retention, because it's about transferring existing businesses, but it's a separable topic. So that's why I'm just excited about that. I'm using Qualtrics and paper. It's interesting to see Qualtrics and paper because we try to make them both exactly the same, but in an electronic survey, you can use these logic rules, and you can cut people off. And on paper, you can't do that. Paper, they can do whatever they want. They can answer things inconsistently. So I'm like, okay, how do we figure this out? So anyway, that's an aside, but you know, that's under the BRE tent. So anyway, other questions or curiosities?
So even if we went the traditional route, we could potentially start with an electronic survey, or is that not part of the program?
I would say you either doing the traditional approach or you're doing the Ohio State thing. Ohio State just kind of giving every business a chance to, you know, to respond, and then you follow up as needed. And there are a bunch of economic developers who are doing that. It's kind of makes sense. You do this initial kind of like, we're gathering data, we're kind of, you know, poking the bear a little bit, like, is anyone upset out there, or, you know, there are people in need? So you don't guess who would, you get a chance to kind of let everyone respond. And you just have more capacity to do it, and then you can devote resources. So it's a nice 1-2 punch, really. It's a logical approach, and I think a fair amount of economic developers try to do things like this. I don't think anything replaces darkening the door of a business and, you know, touch points, seeing them at the chamber, seeing them at the Rotary, seeing them out in the community. And a good economic developer is, you know, using every chance they get to have a touch point with a business, including, you know, drop-in visits or formal BRE visits. But I just think this adds another tool, and I think it would be interesting to try it out. And I'm a little embarrassed that we haven't done it so far. But there, I saw Joe on the plane out to Idaho. I'm like, he's still doing BRE. He says they like it. I should learn about his approach and see if we can try it somewhere in Minnesota. But yeah, the traditional approach it's kind of, I think a lot of aspects of the traditional approach could be part of your program, even if you did the electronic survey up front, you know.
It just seems like maybe we'd get more of a response, and then we can look at the list manually and compare it to our master list and figure out, oh, we didn't hear from, you know, some of our major employers,
That's true,
so and
yeah.
so, and then
Yeah.
see if we can add to it that way.
Right, no, that's the thing, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a little bit more of catch as catch can,
Yeah,
when you just kind of put it out there, and then you wonder which businesses won't respond. Like, I mean, it's one thing to have two community leaders or community people who are, you know, East Bethel people who are concerned about the community, who are listening to you. I mean, people like that. That's Stephen Covey stuff. Like, people want to be heard, and you don't get that feeling from the last. Joe says, yeah, people feel listened to. I said, do they really feel listened to when they fill out a Qualtrics survey? He says they feel listened to if they say something and we send a visitor. So again, it's that, you know, but you're right. You could fill in the gaps by saying, well, you know, here's a dozen businesses we really need to, and they didn't do the Qualtrics, and we're going to offer to visit them. So yeah.
When I look at the geography and the history of settlement and industry in Toledo, Put-in Bay, the Maumee River Valley, I mean, that's an old-time, serious, industrialized, well-settled area of the country. Has far more history and a lot more heavy industry than we have here. And I think that that's something that we would end up possibly fighting, is that a lot of our businesses here are sole proprietorships, and I realize there's sole proprietorships out there also, but I know how much support has to be in a community for heavy industrial uses, like a steel mill,
Yeah.
you know, which Toledo has.
Yeah. No, I'm not suggesting anything here. He just happens to be a guy I know.
Yeah.
And he's from Youngstown, so that's steel country. He was telling stories about the mob there.
That
in
was
Blaine.
steel country.
Yeah, right. And they had the mob there apparently. Whoa.
I'm struggling with how much response we would get from just a mail or an electronic survey. We've done that before.
me too, yeah.
I mean, we've done that before, and I kind of felt the results were a little disappointing.
Yeah, I mean,
For the internet, right? What was that response percentage? Do you know? Do you remember, Jack?
Last time,
From that recent broadband internet
Survey.
survey that we
Just
sent out?
the resident survey.
well, we probably got like about 1% maybe,
1%?
maybe
Yeah.
Okay.
2.
yeah, there's definitely survey fatigue. So if you're gonna do this, and you know, you're trading the reputation of your economic development authority and you know, is East Bethel Chamber still a thing?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they were kind of starting up back when we were doing the BRE. Yeah, you're really trading on all that credibility and all that. Like, you don't want this just to be there's way too many electronic surveys out there. You don't want this to be that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want this to break through the fog, and you want to say, this is a very important thing, and here's the goals. And so that's where a lot of the traditional stuff we're talking about, because, you know, community press releases, social media, whatever channels used, but it's gonna have to be kind of an all of the above strategy. Like, this is an all points, big push, people talking to businesses, you know, I mean, every single thing, maybe phone calling, but yeah, it would not be just another e-survey out there. You're right, you're not gonna get much of a response. So we'd have to really cut through the fog and say, this is a really important thing, and we're gonna do stuff, you know, which is the implicit promise, is we're not wasting your time.
I mean, I take a look, and I went up the University Avenue Extension, AKA Whiskey Road, the other day. So I go past Chandler Industries. One side of the road is the city of Bethel. The other side of the road is East Bethel. And Chandler Industries is a fairly, I would say it's a medium-sized precision machine shop, sheet metal fabricating shop. They had a decent facility up in Bethel. I would say that you'd typically see 20 cars outside of it, or trucks, vehicles outside of it. So I looked at it and I thought, how come there's no one here working? This is a Friday. Well, it turned out they closed their operation. They built a new building down in Blaine and they consolidated a couple of other operations. And they have, they have a shop in Lindstrom and I don't know, when you look up their website, they have a number of different places. And, granted it's Bethel and not East Bethel, but it's still our trade area, so to speak, and I don't know.
Is Bethel slightly bigger than you, or, I've never been to Bethel. I always wondered, is there a Bethel?
Bethel's 1 square mile and it's got about, I don't know, Brian, what does they have, 400 people in it?
Oh, they're really tiny.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 500.
500?
I'd say 400 to 600,
All right.
somewhere in there, but compared to East Bethel where we're, I think, just under 12,000 and 47 3/4 square miles, something like that, so we're substantially larger.
Yeah. Bethel plows maybe 12 miles of road.
All right. No wonder I've never been there.
Right.
St. Francis, took our BRE course, in East Bethel, we've done stuff, but I always wondered, what's Bethel? Is there a Bethel?
Well, Bethel used to be just 3 bars and a post office.
So it was a traditional small town,
Yeah,
whereas you guys were a township that turned into a city, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Bethel was organized because the railroad went through there.
Okay.
And at one time, it actually was fairly large and it was a big stop and they had hotels and stuff there. But then automobiles happened and train still goes through there, but it's
All
not like it was.
Yeah, they only stop if they're got to fix the locomotive.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, Christine Costello, the person who was there before her for Anoka County, seems like she was trying to do some interesting stuff but then she took off and went to work for I think a contractor. I can't remember her name. She's a young gal. But anyway, yeah, wait, and she worked for the county, but Connexus was really excited, right, Samantha? No,
Samantha
the person
Markham?
before her, yeah, yeah, right. Anyway,
I mean, to a certain degree, I felt a little insulted that so far as I know, we never had they never contacted us at all, and I don't think we would have we didn't know anything about the place closing, and I read the business section of the paper and things like that. But if they wanted fire protection, we have a city water tower, we have vacant lots in an industrial park
yep.
with wastewater treatment and a fire tower, so you can have, a water tower, so you can have fire protection.
Yep.
All those things are important to industry.
Blaine's got a big community development department. Three of them have taken our business retention course, and they're real proactive. And so I don't know if Blaine had anything to do with it, or if they just got lucky, But I know that they do BRE visits and stuff, so it's part of the game,
I did notice that I didn't know the exact location that they went to, but basically it appears to me that they went down on that industrial park off Lexington and 35W. So, they're closer to a better transportation system than we have here.
Sure.
We've got beautiful Highway 65.
And employees, closer to employee base too, probably. I don't know.
That's one of the things that I found out in talking on our other BR&E, how many people we had that came into East Bethel to do skilled jobs. To me, that's, machining is a
Right.
skilled job, and they would be coming in from Mora, Now they have to drive a little farther. I also saw we had people that came up here from the cities for some of the jobs, but I just see that when you have something like that, essentially leave the community. I consider Bethel part of our community.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we pay a lot of attention to workforce and the, and the applied, we usually get the labor analysts from Department of Employment and Economic Development help us with the report. So a lot of good stuff in here. And that was, last time it said, in 2016, you said he had 6,800 people leaving every day and 736 people coming in. So you had some people coming in, and then 214 were working and living in town. So, but we could do, that's the kind of analysis that we do as the part of the baseline. So whether you chose to do an e-survey up front and follow-up visits, or our traditional approach, or some variation, I think we can still give you a good report based on your data and the other data that's out there. So you'll get, you get the same kind of nice input piece where you decide what you want to do, big picture. I just think there's probably more of an opportunity to do individual response if you do an e-survey plus visits after. You probably catch more businesses in the overall data gathering. I'm just a hunch. I'm not sure, but I think if we do a good job, if you work with Eric King or my colleague and you really put a full-scale push out there, I think you could probably do better than 43 business surveys completed, and do more of a contemporary follow-up type of, more of a contemporary approach. Do you have a community development director nowadays?
No,
No.
we
Okay.
did, and the new council decided to eliminate that position.
Okay, so you don't have as much staff capacity, but you have.
Right.
Do you think you could get community volunteers to be part of a BRE visitation team like you did last time?
We had pretty
I-
robust
You did.
volunteerism last time.
You
I
did.
think we would, might have two in the audience right now.
Yeah.
As I looked through the list of those volunteers, I realized about 2/3 of them are business owners in East Bethel,
Well,
which is fine. I mean,
Right.
It
that's-
is. We like that, yeah.
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 Yeah, we like to get, we at University of Minnesota like to get some educators involved. We like to get government employees and elected officials, appointed officials, and business owners, and then, people like chamber people. And, we like to have a broader swath of the community because it's an education thing for the community members.
Right.
Yeah, I know that the city has discussed this with the chamber, and they are willing to be involved with it and help out.
Are they
So-
volunteer or do they have a staff?
No, just volunteer
Okay. All right.
organization.
How many members do you think they have?
Over 100.
Oh, that's good. All right.
They don't usually get that turnout at
No.
every meeting. They
No,
get
no.
about 15 to
All right.
50, depending on the
All right.
day and the time.
Yeah, if there's food.
Yeah, of course, if there's food. You get me to show up if there's food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that, if you can get them involved and excited like last time, so that's basically it. You guys know how, there's three of you were involved last time, and Jack was watching and being a cheerleader, and, I asked Eric if he could come up, I just sprung it on him today, but, he's a good guy, and, he could give you some support if you want to do the whole thing, so.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions or comments?
Would it be beneficial, to ask Michael just to send us a proposal and an application, so we can take a look at that? And what I'd like to do is have some chamber people here at our next meeting. We'll also attend the next chamber meeting. I wanna get them to sign into this, cause I think they're gonna be the key component on getting this done, especially with the interviews. So, I think we'd like to get them involved. Was it too early to ask you to send us a proposal?
No, that's a very logical thing, we could send you a proposal that talks about our traditional program. Like I said, it's $12,000, and we want you to do all the stuff that you did last time. And then I would kind of say the University of Minnesota, learning from Ohio State colleagues. I trust this guy, Joe. He's done a lot of BRE. and just kind of put something together for you and give you something to react to. And then we can go back and forth if you want to kind of, okay, we like the Ohio State thing, but we like the traditional thing, and a little dose of sassafras and a pinch of, tarragon, whatever, We want to learn together, so that's kind of exciting for me, and I think Eric would enjoy that too, so. Eric's a more modern guy than me. He got his master's degree like 6 years ago. Mine's from the 80s, so you get a master's in urban and regional planning from the Humphrey School at the U, so he knows some tricks that I don't know, so, So, old school and new school together, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I can do that. So then you guys could talk about amongst yourselves in the
Sure.
chamber, and we could Zoom in, whatever, Eric and I, whatever. I don't know if you ever get Zoom. Is this on cable?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, are the people at home watching the cable TV, or is it?
Oh.
It's on YouTube and cable.
Okay, all right,
You can
cool,
watch it live on YouTube.
Cool.
Cable and
all right,
live stream and get it right on your phone.
okay. So when would you need the proposal by?
I don't know, if we could have it kind of in 2 weeks, would
Okay.
that be too soon?
Yeah, get it done by the end of the month?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
that sounds good.
We could discuss some things in the next meeting, maybe we can take a look at it. And like you say, there may be some things that we want to maybe kind of adjust, we could run that by you too. and
Sure.
See what we can do to work this out to make it fit our situation currently.
Yeah, it sounds like your situation's changed a little bit, our situation's changed a little bit, and the world keeps changing, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
While Mike was giving his presentation, I just kind of was thinking in my mind that there's about 20 new bigger businesses that are located here that have different needs that weren't here when we did this initial survey, so.
Right.
Those are some things too that we'll add to the list and maybe look over some of those and maybe kind of project maybe what some of their needs are so we can incorporate it into some kind of final design for what we're gonna request.
Yeah, I like the idea of thinking about the businesses that you really want to get them to respond, and thinking about the strategy for that, whether they happen to fill out the electronic survey, but then if they don't, what's the plan to get them into the boat? But being willing, if you can build the capacity, being willing to respond to any business, including those sole proprietors, home-based, if they want to visit, or it could be a phone call visit, could be one that we do over, you do over Zoom. It doesn't have to be in their business, but it's got to be, live. Kind of like you're
Right.
listening to them, you're feeling their pain, whatever, right? And you're letting them kind of say what they need to say. So, yeah, I think it could be a good both and. So I can do that.
So I just have a comment because in my opinion, I'm kind of new to this EDA and I was on the council for the last 4 years. I'm not on right now. But I feel like very little was implemented from the first study. I know they worked on the 4, but there's a whole bunch of other businesses that had other needs than those 4. And I looked at them all and I'm like, we could still do this, we could still do that. And so I'm wondering, do we need to do a whole new study when we have a packet of information of where we can go and get committees and get volunteers without you guys and go and take that last packet and visit the businesses? I mean, that's my thought. I'm thinking, why spend the money when we have the information and we need to, and we can do that. We can go have conversations with business owners. I go to the almost every chamber meeting I have for probably 2 years now, and I see businesses and I asked them and some of them said, well, nobody's talked to us since 2017 or 2016, since the last BRE, So I'm thinking that if we want businesses to think we care, we just need to go visit them. We don't need to spend money and see how that works. And then if there's more information needed, then we can go back and do a whole new study. But we've got information, we've got data that from that study that nothing has been addressed on. And I think that those are my opinions, and I'm just looking for feedback from you guys now.
Well, let me tell you a story. once upon a time, we did a BRE with Pipestone County. And the gal who was like what was his name? Doug Welter? Or maybe it was kind of like the Doug Welter and the Colleen Winter put together. And she got cancer. Eventually, she recovered, but she went away and took a job out east. So then the new guy came in, and we did this whole thing. And they visited a ton of businesses, and we did a high quality. I wrote that report. This is 20 years ago. So the new guy came in and did a whole bunch of other stuff. He didn't really pay attention to what they'd found out in the BRE. He chased Outlet Mall, which didn't make a lot of sense because they're not on I-94, like the shops of Albertville and the one in Woodbury. They're all on freeways. They're not on state highways. So that didn't work. But he kind of ignored this because he had to make his mark. He was the new guy. The BRE was her thing, which is unfortunate. But so one of my colleagues, Neil Linscheid, went out to Pipestone 3 or 4 years ago. And he says, "Hey, Michael, you still got that report from that BRE back in like 2003? I said, "Yeah, I'm a pack rat. My office is full of these reports." So I sent him a copy of it. He takes it out to Pipestone County, and this is like 15 years after they did the BRE. They said, "Oh my God, this is like 95% still the issues." Now this is a rural county on the edge of South Dakota, but like a lot of the stuff was still true, still valid, kind of your point. And it was interesting to them. It's kind of like Rip Van Winkle. The thing fell asleep, and they found it 15 years later. So, we're very proud of our reports. We're very proud of the process. And you guys did a good job last time, just the same as Pipestone County. So I think you're right. A lot of the stuff would be the same issues. Now, getting the energy, getting the people involved, who's going to do it. There's a whole process here of restarting it. But I would say that what you did last time is still going to be largely good. Now, there's this whole pandemic that happened and some things have happened in the world, but I would bet that a lot of the business owner issues are still germane, So we stand by that report. If you want to do a new process with us, we can do it, but I'm sure this is still probably pretty good stuff. It's 7 years old. But in 2018, some stuff had happened, on some of the stuff, so, and Colleen had reported a few things a few years after that, so, as long as it's not dead in the water, like what happened in Pipestone, that was unfortunate. But I understand that guy had to make his mark, and he was just going with what he knew. He didn't have the benefit of he kind of ignored this. I'm like, go with your own study. When you talk to the businesses, and you listen to the businesses, and you have a good study from the University of Minnesota, and you're all part of it, I'd say go with that before what the new hires does, but,
I think what we get though with Eric, he'd be running the training for the volunteers to question, he'd be coordinating everything. Otherwise we'd have to have somebody
He'd
to
be
take that role.
He'd be advising and
Yeah,
giving expert advice and.
it would be a major coordination effort. And I just don't know if we have who, you wanna head it up?
It does bring up a valid point. Why would we want to do another survey if the city staff itself lacks the community development director to not only spearhead this but also implement it in many ways? I do see a very valid point in updating this, considering all that has happened, not just in the city prior to the pandemic, but also after. There's many very, very valid reasons to do that, but I do see your point in our city staff is strapped as it is, and I think in doing this, we should keep that in mind.
True.
Who is going to implement this? Who is going to help drive it within our city?
if you want, I can share you the survey that Joe has, and you have my survey, and you guys could get some volunteers and do your own Qualtrics. You don't have to have the visits and stuff. If you want to do some do-it-yourself, you can do your own e-survey. But, there's methodology to it, and you want to make sure it's the right thing for you and test it and all that good stuff. That's the kind of stuff we help with. But, do-it-yourself is, a lot of people doing do-it-yourself these days. But we usually have, we're usually working with communities that have at least one economic development and usually more staff involved. So, let's see, I guess Lonsdale had their city administrator, and they did not have a professional economic development staff. So, and they did all right, but they had some pretty committed volunteers, You know, imagine yourselves as a leadership team. They had a pretty good team, and they worked with Eric, and then me and the U of M Duluth people were back there, and Lonsdale had a good run. They had a thing where they did an e-survey in lieu of, like the business could do the e-survey and not have, I don't know, it was weird. They could do an e-survey, or they could do they could wait for the people to come out and do the paper survey, and that was kind of weird, but we tried it, because some students had said, well, you should give people a chance to do an electronic survey. But what I like about Joe's approach in Ohio is that all businesses are invited, they can all do the e-survey, and then you can do a follow-up separately. In Lonsdale, it was kind of like, they could wait for Brian to show up with his partner to do the visit, and they just listen, you take notes. Or they could have filled out the electronic thing at the same time, and it was an interesting experiment, but it was a little strange at the same time, so.
I don't buy that we only concentrated on 2 businesses. We only had improvement from 2 businesses. As I'm looking at this list of places, and I'm not gonna name them all, I'll probably miss some. Aggressive Hydraulics, since then has put on a substantial expansion, and it might even be 2 if I know they've got 1 substantial expansion. We've got Panagold here. Washi Commercial Finishes is doing an expansion. A-Blast is doing an expansion. Businesses don't make those plans on short orders, so to speak. That's a long-term plan that they had, and obviously they must have felt that they liked what they were seeing from the leadership in East Bethel. They weren't pulling out of here. I would have liked to have captured Chandler Industries, but we didn't know, so to speak. I don't see that. I think that we did well in the BR&E last time. When you asked me before what a couple of high points were, I pointed out Tech Industries, which is right in my wheelhouse. I mean, that's the industry I worked in. We made reasonable progress and had reasonable results. I think it's hard to have lots of results when you're dealing with a fairly small number of businesses. From a statistical standpoint, if you're casting a wider net into a bigger school of fish, you're going to catch more fish. You see what I'm saying? I mean, like in the Maumee Valley, obviously they're going to have a lot of response to a mailed in or an online survey. We don't have that number of businesses here. I don't know. I'll pat us on the back and say we did well for what we tried to accomplish.
And I never said it wasn't, nobody did well. I'm saying it wasn't completely implemented and more could have been done, more can still be done before we go for this study, is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a valid point, but we've got so many new businesses, and some of those businesses might not be here any longer. So it'd be good to take stock of what we've got now, rather than working off of old data. That's my opinion. And how we go about that, if we do it ourselves, or, if we decide to formally go through, I guess we need to discuss and figure that out. But I think rather than going back to the old report, we need some new information, no matter how we get it.
Well, I think the end result is going to depend on what we want to do, see if we want to follow the old plan step by step, make it a hybrid model, and what input we're going to be able to get from the chamber this time around. The Chamber of Commerce is not the same Chamber of Commerce that we dealt with in 2016.
Right.
So we've got to get a buy-in from them, some commitment, because they're going to be one of the main drivers of this. The other thing too is we do not have the staff capacity to do this like we did the last time. And it's going to take somebody from Michael's office, like you said, to help guide and advise us on what we need to do with this thing. So I think we need to just get a proposal, look at it, then the proposal doesn't even commit to it. It needs to be evaluated as an option and come up with a decision on what we want to do.
So I want to ask Brian, so last time, I kind of thought Doug and Colleen were probably the co-drivers. I'm not really sure. But now there's
Yep.
no Colleen.
No, Colleen,
And is there a Doug type
she-
person out there? Because he was kind of a driver.
no, she moved on and we hired another community development director. And she recently moved on in November to another city.
Okay.
And there's been
She's
discussions.
80 miles away, working as a city administrator, I believe.
The city doesn't want to replace her.
So,
But we had Doug and Colleen last time. and
yep,
It's like a deal didn't do the work, but a deal coached you all on how to
Yep.
do stuff. So,
But-
so Eric's not gonna do the work. It's all
Right.
about coaching you. And if
Yep.
you guys aren't gonna do the work, then we're out. Because we're not local extension educators. None of us work for Anoka County. In the old days, you have extension educators, and you could make them do stuff. And we're not local extension educators. We're state. I have like supposedly 13 counties. I don't do work for you. I'll help you do the work. And same with Eric, so if any of you have an old image of extension where, I mean, there's some 4-H people in Anoka County, maybe some family development, maybe some ag people, but there's no community development people there. So we're all coming out of Minneapolis or St. Paul campus offices, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we still have some dedicated people that volunteer and are involved that,
Master gardeners,
we could
4-H and all that.
get another
Oh, you mean in East
Doug
Bethel?
Welter.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, all
and
right,
probably new dedicated people who would be dedicated,
Okay.
so
all right,
it's, a lot of time has passed, so
sure.
it makes sense to, let's connect with the chamber
So,
next month and.
yeah, I'm sure if we wanna do it, that we would be, we would have to get the people involved.
You
and
bet, yep.
Have the dedicated people.
And,
and-
whether it takes you 3 months or 6 months or a year, and you wanna go forward with it, we'll be around. I mean, the program's 30 years, and I'm doing the torch for the business succession and transition, but love to bring this off the shelf, and Ohio State, whatever, like, we wanna help Minnesota communities. And we were pretty happy with East Bethel last time. That was a good experience, so we'll be around, so whatever works.
Do you have training programs? You were talking about
we
that
do.
you've had training programs
for
where
bringing that
people
up.
can go and
Yes,
and
I'm
you
sorry.
can tell
That's-
people how to do that.
I'm sorry, I should have told you that. We have a class next month, June 20th and 21st, on the St. Paul campus. It's 3 quarters B or E, and it's 1 quarter business succession and transition. So, so here's the deal. Like if you had a new Colleen, which you don't, they could come by themselves for $575. But if you send a team of 2 people, it's like 900 and something. If you send a people of 3 to 5 people, it's like 1,400. It's on our website. So you can send a team for 2 days, and they won't get into all the details, but they'll get the big picture of what this thing's about. So that is a training program. I'm sorry I didn't say that before. That's another option for you. We also have some free stuff on our website. When I switched and went over to business succession, my boss says, well, you got to put some of the stuff onto the website. So I was kind of grouchy about that. I'm like, whatever, it's not the same as me. But I work with our academic technologists, these women, they're really sharp, and they put a bunch of the stuff I know on a free class on the website. Now, that doesn't work for everybody, but for people who like to go on a computer and just learn stuff by themselves, it's pretty good.
And what is that website?
That's at our, let's see if I can write, if you just Google, if you go to the extension website and search business retention and expansion, you'll get right to my homepage, and the class is listed right there, and it's June 20th and 21st. So that is an option. If you could get a team of the next Doug Welter, the next Colleen Winter, the next Brian, the 2 Brians you had, you could send a team of 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and we'd love to have you. Right now, I'm not sure if the class is gonna happen because I don't have anyone signed up, but some people asked for us to do the class, so we put it out there, and we're looking for, if we get 10 people, we'll have that class. But yeah, there is a independent learning option, free class on the website.
I'm assuming that's a train the trainers because class, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because
That's what I
the
was
volunteers don't just go out there. You go through a class, an orientation session here.
Yeah, so it's a train the trainer, and so they won't know as much as Eric, but like potentially you could send a team of 3, 4, 5 people, and they could go do the BRIA with, they could set up the whole thing and do what you did last time, or do the Ohio State thing. And if you want us to do reports, we could just reports, but Eric and I don't have to come out here. So that's another option of more of a do-it-yourself, but, you know, you could always call Eric or I, we could Zoom in. But if we don't have to drive out here, you know, we can do the applied research. We can name a price for, you know, me and the UMD team kind of analyzing your data and giving us some nice reports, coming out, running a retreat. So, you know, you could do partly do it yourself and partly buying stuff from the university. So, yeah, sorry, June 20th and 21st, we have a class. I apologize for not bringing that up before.
Thank you.
Good question. We do like to do education. This is an educational process, and I used to have an online class, but I put that, I made that into the free one. I'm afraid I'm confusing you all, but there's different options here. We try to meet people where they're at.
Okay.
I can put that in the proposal too. I can mention the class, so you know.
Well, I think you've shown that there's a great deal of flexibility that may be available here. We just need to take a look at it and come up with something that we think fits our needs and what we're after, and go from there.
Very
Agreed.
good, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't even show you any videos. Like the last few times I was here, I showed you videos. We have lots of videos too. So that's all part of that free class. Well, great. Thanks for inviting me out.
Thank you.
And I'll
Thank you
be in
for
touch.
coming.
You're welcome. Good to be back in
This
East
is very
Bethel.
helpful.
I think my historic baseball team sometimes plays against the Rum River Rovers. I think they play here sometimes in your East Bethel, I think. So this is 1860.
Thought it was the St. Francis Bandits.
I haven't heard of the Bandits, but the Rum River Rovers, I think they're from Princeton, but I think sometimes they host us here in East Bethel. I don't know if
Okay.
that's next door, but I haven't played there, but I hear they cook good, so again, that food thing. I have to show up sometime. It's 1860s rules. You can get a guy out in one hop. That's my only chance, because I can never catch the ball very good, but on one hop, I have a chance, and you don't have a glove. And you wear the old-fashioned outfits and stuff. It's kind of fun. So if you ever hear about it, you know, you ever hear about the Minneapolis Quick Steps? And we're not quick, because we're all old. But that's the name of the Minneapolis team.
Michael, thank you so much for coming. We
You're welcome.
appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Like him.
That's great.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm scrolling down to the, oh, I guess I can look at. So we can move on to item number 5, business activity report.
Thank you, Julie. Since the last meeting, there have been a few updates and changes in some of the project lists that we had going on. Number one is you're well aware that the holiday construction is well on its way. The site demolition has been completed, and they are almost getting ready to get dried in with the building. That work is scheduled to be completed by the end of June to the middle of July. The Elvidge project is still on schedule. Roads and utility work should begin by the end of June, and the first phase of the housing components should still start this fall. Probably the most important announcement of the night is all the DNR wetland issues relating to Quick Trip project have been resolved, and Quick Trip will commence construction by June 5th, 2023. Completion of this project is anticipated by late summer or early fall of this year. Quick Trip was notified today that their permit is ready to be picked up and they can start construction. I understand they have some crews ready, so we may see some activity over there very, very soon. At their last council meeting, the city approved a resolution calling for a public hearing on June 12, 2023 regarding the conduit bond issuance for Nexus, the purchasers of Cambia Hills. Negotiations between Nexus and ISD 15 are underway to resolve concerns of the school district, and an announcement is expected soon regarding the status of the possible reopening of this facility. The new operator would offer the same psychological residential youth treatment service that was provided by Cambia Hills of East Bethel, A reopening would restore this vital service and 90 jobs that were lost with the closure of Canby Hills of East Bethel in May of 2021. Staff did meet with the Chamber of Commerce this past Thursday. We provided them with a BRE update and invited chamber members to tonight's meeting. I think it's critical that we try to get some chamber members here at our next meeting to get them involved in this BRE discussion to see what they're willing to do to help us. That'll kind of give us direction on what we're going to do or what we can do. And Designing Earth Contracting, located at 18651 Buchanan Street, is in the process of relocating to and constructing a new building at 18880 Ulysses Street. We met with them last month. They want to be on a fast track schedule, and they're proposing to construct a 20,000 square foot building approximately on these two sites right here. This is the theater, Pan of Gold. They bought all three of these lots. They propose to leave this lot vacant at the time for possible future expansion or resale to another commercial operation. The exciting thing about this is here's the rendering of the new building they want to build, which I think is very, very attractive. It's 20,000 square feet. It's about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet devoted to office, meeting rooms, kitchen, restroom facilities, storage, but I think it'd be a very nice addition to that park and keep the architectural tone that we're trying to establish set up in that area. So they're going to be at the Planning Commission on May the 23rd to present their concept plan, and they hope to be to construction by August.
That's a nice looking building.
It is.
Aluminum curtain wall in front like that. That whole entry system, brick, you know, it could be panels, could be individually laid, I don't know. But certainly looks like tip-up construction to,
Yeah.
that's a nice building. That's a credit to the community.
And here's kind of
Asset.
the site plan. Here's the theater right here,
Okay.
and this is the corner where Holiday is. This is the corner where Pan of Gold is. So they're going to be at that corner. This is the building footprint, the parking. There will be exterior storage located in this area. And this is the lot that will not be developed at this time, that they will hold for either future expansion or for future sale. So we thought that was a nice addition and a nice announcement. So
Yes.
we're hoping everything can go through with that and they can get started on their schedule. So that's all I have for our business activity report.
All right. Item number 6, ordinance review.
You can blame me for that.
I know. No, that's good. Good to,
I will let everybody know that we do have the recording set off. The recording is set to cut off at 10 o'clock tonight, so
oh,
we got plenty of time here, Brian.
I just felt that it was important that we weighed in on it. I have my opinion on it, what the proposals are, and I'm quite sure that my opinions will be ignored. I think it's taken a step backwards, but I'm going to just sit back and listen now. But I apologize if anyone was expecting to be able to, if anyone was trying to get to the 8 o'clock puck drop, but Butler's gone.
Brian,
So
can you share some of
just,
your-
excuse me,
Sorry.
Tom.
I would like to hear more of your thoughts. I think it's the proper forum for you
Yeah.
to share those thoughts, considering we're bringing it up here at the meeting.
If you can, let me just read a little bit of background on
Yeah.
this to get everybody primed for this matter. City Ordinance Architectural Standards, Appendix A, Zoning, Section 28, is in the process of review by the East Bethel Planning Commission. The need for the review was discussed by City Council at their April 3rd, 2023 meeting and was sent to the Planning Commission for comments on proposed changes to the ordinance. The Planning Commission discussed this matter at their April 25th, 2023 meeting, and this matter has been continued to their May 23rd meeting. Brian Bezanson spoke at the May 8th, 2023 City Council meeting and requested that City Council include the EDA in the review of this ordinance and have the EDA provide comments to these changes, particularly as they impact economic development and marketing activities by the city. City Council recommended the EDA review this material and offer recommendations to the Planning Commission for their May 23rd, 2023 meeting. Attachment 1 in this report is a copy of the existing ordinance, and Attachment 2 contains the work notes from the council for modification to the ordinance. And essentially what's originally proposed now is Attachment 2 would replace Attachment 1. As we go into this review, I would recommend the focus be more on what you feel should be kept in the attachment and what you feel should be removed or modified, rather than a discussion on the details of any new draft language. The discussion will be based on a comparison with Attachment 1, the existing ordinance, and Attachment 2, the proposal to replace Attachment 1. I did just do a little basic research with our surrounding cities that do have architectural standards in their ordinance. Ham Lake has some standards that do allow pole-type buildings in commercial district, but they do not allow them in industrial district. It has to be metal frame buildings. St. Francis has a very, very vague architectural standards, and it just basically says that the architecture shall comply with surrounding properties, and it doesn't go into a lot of details. Blaine has one that's got about 10 different zoning districts, but basically what they do allow certain architectural metal along with other exterior building materials. So there may be some things in our ordinance that could be changed and maybe need to be changed, but again, we want to discuss kind of how this we think would impact our economic development activities. So with that, I'll turn it over for discussion.
So Brian, you want to talk about the particular issues that?
I feel that allowing, and I'm gonna qualify this with where wood framing is right now for pole-type construction, because the wood framing industry is very much evolving. I have a former colleague of mine who's building a apartment building down, retail apartment building, and it's engineered wood. Down where the McDonald's was, down on University, 4th Avenue, Dinkytown.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Al Anderson's building
Oh,
that.
that's our project.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Alan Anderson is one of my oldest and
Okay.
dearest friends.
Yep.
I'm supposed to go down there and look at it. I was amazed when I was talking, I mean, and Al and I have partnered on, I can't tell you how many different projects. When he told me that it's gonna be wood going up as high as it is, I said, how can you go that high with sticks? Sticks meaning
Wood frame.
wood frames, conventional stuff, and he
Right.
said, it's all engineered wood. He said, it's going up there, it's all fire protected. So it's not that I necessarily have a bias against wood technology per se. I don't think that you want to have the type of buildings that would be allowed by the ordinance change going in on the vacant lots that are still sitting on the Highway 65 frontage. When you take a look at the building that they're putting in there, go look at the St. Francis Business District, north and east of County Market. Go look at most of Ham Lake. We worked hard to implement substantial architectural standards at one time. To take and throw that away, in my opinion, is a mistake. And the other thing is, frankly, it opens up the possibility of having more, I don't know, for controversial type developments come in that maybe want to distribute salt and mulch and things like that, because you're taking away the outdoor screening requirements also. I built buildings for real businesses. I can't tell you how many millions of dollars of construction I put in place. I started one time to sit down and list all the jobs I had done over the last 30 years as a superintendent, and I just, in my opinion, as a construction professional, retired, I think it's a step backwards. I don't want to totally outright say wood is bad. I would like to see it be delayed implementation for a while and studied more, simply because I don't know that much about engineered wood. I've got a future grandson-in-law who's getting his master's now down at KU in structural engineering with an emphasis on engineered wood. And I haven't talked to Evan about it. He and Paige only come back a couple of times each year. But I'm going to be very curious to see, to talk with him as how it works out. One of the nicest buildings I ever built was basically nothing more than a steel frame pole barn. It was a maintenance building for the city of Wayzata. And, it was steel frames. Think, the term would be a Butler building. Some people refer to them as, with girts. But the walls of that building were not corrugated metal, pole barn siding, however you want to describe it. It was precast panels. They weren't as pretty as the ones that Jack showed us that the Designing Earth is going to put up at their place, but they were, nice exposed aggregate precast panels. Tip-up construction is a huge, huge way that things are built these days. I'm surprised. I mean, we don't see a lot of it here. Well, we see it at Aggressive Hydraulics, but Classic doesn't do it because they're a brick and masonry outfit primarily. That's what they build their load-bearing walls. And, that's, again, a proven technique. The argument that you're restricting, you're raising the cost of construction. Yeah, you are. And in my opinion, that means you have more tax dollars, you have a better clientele, a more stable clientele that is going to come in. I mean, I look in your business, Julie. I just, when I heard that this was coming forward, I decided, okay, I'm going to speak out. I've said I think I've made my views clear. I would like to see this put on hold and studied further. I think it has a long-term implication to the economic health of the city.
So I was just looking at the notes and the markup. So discussing wood frame, I mean, is that mentioned in here? I don't see that in here. It works more with the exterior finishes?
It words with that, but
If you go to
Summary of change, okay.
summary of changes in here, one of the first ones is to allow, provision to allow painted steel siding as an exterior finish for new construction. Again, I just basically looked at a few.
Got it, yeah, okay.
And Blaine does, they call it architectural metal, which means it's kind of like, you know, the preform panels that are kind of corrugated in some sense, that have some relief to them. Depending on what it was, you know, I don't see too much of a problem with that, because then they say they have to be incorporated 50% with 2 or more materials at either
With the other material, yeah.
rock, some kind of precast enhanced
Right.
concrete finishes, glass and things of that nature. I think there's a way of combination in some of this stuff that you can use that.
And it isn't just, I mean, pole barn steel is, I mean, I'm speaking very generically.
Yeah.
You know, pole barn steel is one type of steel siding or steel roofing. The other thing is that, to tell you the truth, what I think is a very attractive siding when you have a pitched roof on a building is what's called standing seam. And I don't know if everyone understands what standing seam is, but you know, that's where the panels come together and they go up. They're preformed, and there's a clip that comes down, and then there's a cap that's put on top of that. And I mean, that looks very nice. And again, it's the fasteners are all hidden. It's just things like that I think that what happens when you loosen things up is people find ways to try to cheat even more.
One of the other things mentioned in here is modified language to ensure that new construction is not required to have windows on the side or back of buildings. We traditionally now have, at least in the corridor, what's called four-sided architecture, that, you know, you have to have some elements of design on each wall. Now, I can see in certain instances, though, where certain buildings that have, you know, whether it's upfront office space and have the back is more or less a warehouse, the blank walls do enhance your storage ability, and you don't eat up a lot of space that are occupied by windows or other things of that nature. You know, to me, I think there's probably some flexibility to look at on that one that's suggested. The next one is the combination of design requirements into 2 different districts. I think this is more or less a procedural matter, and it's just a matter of how you want to arrange the ordinance once it's written. But the third one, added architectural enhanced precast and cast in place panel, architectural concrete in combination with other materials and other comparable or superior material approved by the city council as acceptable exterior building materials. In our current ordinance, actually, precast concrete panels are prohibited, but there is that one clause in there that says, or as approved by city council. But as Brian said, in aggressive hydraulics is a good example, those enhanced precast concrete tip-up panels, the way they do them now, can be very attractive and very enhancing to a building. So, you know, I think that's one good one too that does need to be changed in the ordinance.
I mean, yeah.
You know, it has to be defined, but it does need to be changed to just specifically allow those with a good concrete definition. The other one is modifying the percentage of the facade facing the public right-of-way that must be glass for B2 and B3 districts. I think that requirement now is like 30% for commercial, 20% for industrial. That's one. I think this one recommended to go down to 20% for both. The other one is to remove the constraint on pole buildings in B2, B3, and light industrial zones. And the last one is create separate section again. I think that was another just a procedural matter on how you organize what changes are made. So those are really the considerations that we're looking at here that are contained in this proposal.
So hypothetically, if, remind me of the name of the company with the beautiful new building.
Designing Earth.
Right, so if they sold the lot next to them to somebody else, somebody could build a pole building there.
If this were approved as written, yes.
That seems like a mistake.
Well, you know, one other way to look at it too, and is that there may need to be another different zone created that maybe allows some of these type structures. And maybe where you have water and sewer is one where you're gonna have stricter
Sure,
architectural standards, and where you don't, you may be able to have something that conforms somewhat more to what's proposed here.
We just had and I stopped there because I needed to have an estimate for some body work on my new truck that I bought to replace the truck that I was in the shop for 6 months, getting body work done. I stopped at the place right up on north end of Highway 65,
Oak Ridge, I think?
Oak Ridge. Yeah, I met the owner in there. And I asked him, I said, you know, you're building a pole building. And he said, yeah, I am. And I said, how did you get that? And he said, well, the existing building is a pole building. So I'm a legal non-conforming use. So his expansion is a pole building. Great young guy. I mean, had a nice conversation with him. The other thing is that that's a pretty exceptional looking pole building for a pole building. It looks more like it's a Butler frame building or something along those lines. But, I mean, it is definitely a pole building. And it's also not in the heart of our commercial district. That's the issue for me.
right.
And you know, the other thing too with pole building or post and frame, whatever you want to call them, there's so many more things that you can do with those now from an architectural standpoint that weren't available 20 years ago. They were just kind of barn type buildings, but there's so many more options now that you can do to dress them up. But you know, one of the things that, you know, might be a consideration, like I say, is where you have the water and sewer service there, the property values are $100,000 an acre essentially, or up. So that's hopefully probably going to preclude the fact that you're going to get more buildings like the one with Designing Earth or Pan of Gold or Advanced Construction or second generation chimneys, the last 4 businesses to locate there. And maybe in some of have another light industrial zone that does, where it's light industrial 1 or A, that does permit some different options for buildings.
So I'm going to put my opinion in there because I think a lot of businesses aren't coming here because we have so many micromanaging rules. I think that they're costly requirements and it decreases opportunities for businesses to move here. And I think it's just not business friendly. And and most of the changes are strictly cosmetics and nothing, there's no serious proposals to change anything that really would matter on, I can't think of the word, the actual stability of a building or the quality. It's all mostly cosmetic. And I agree with the changes.
From a structural standpoint, there's a big difference between tilt-up panels and a pole building.
Oh, yeah.
So,
But nothing that would change what our inspectors would be looking for. If they were allowed in here, that's the only thing they're looking for. Is it a pole building or is it a brick type building? I mean, they still have to have the electrical inspections and the plumbing inspections and all those inspections, and
Pole
those
buildings.
are the important ones. Cosmetics are not that important.
Pole buildings do not go in on footings, per se. They go in on a pad that's put down underneath the pole, down below frost depth. The pole is treated, it comes up, it is, how long will it last? Most of them last a long time, but there's a huge difference in the structure between the two of them. You have never built a building, so you're walking in water that's way over your head.
Personally, I haven't, but we did just build a addition on our, not an addition, but a huge 26 by 44 garage, and my husband did all the work, so I was there. I know what goes into it. I'm not stupid.
Yeah, no, I don't think he was implying that. I think
Thank
so
you,
from,
sorry.
there's big structural differences between the kind of buildings.
I
And then
understand
with the
that.
finished, you get a painted steel siding, you look at one of those buildings 15 years down the road and the sun bleach and it discolors, and I mean, there's just there's huge differences. And I mean, is that what we want in our business park? People coming in and, I mean,
Julie, how about from a development perspective, what is your assessment of this and how it could potentially affect future businesses coming to East Bethel?
I think that look at the success we've had in our business park so far. I mean, the difference in construction costs, I guess I couldn't venture a guess on what percentage difference we're talking about. But
Well, there's two there's two sides to that
Go
argument.
for it.
Okay. You're gonna understand one of them for sure. Okay, when you're coming in and you're building number one, when you're building a commercial building like these down here, those buildings are subject to special inspections. So I'm drifting a little bit away. City building inspectors normally don't come out and take a look at the concrete and masonry being placed. That's a special inspector has to come out, so that's gonna be someone from Twin City Testing, Braun, things like that, okay? Because of the level of professionalism that's involved in that type of construction, this is my question to you, Julie, is to me, that would be easier for the owner to secure longer term financing for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for a bank to take a look at financing a pole barn versus a differently constructed building with other materials, insurance rates, I mean, it's a huge difference. I mean, people who are building professional buildings in our industrial park right now are there for the long run. They're investing in the community, and it's just more of a long term. I mean, to have somebody be able to toss up I don't know how much it costs, $400,000 pole barn and say, hey, I've got a business. I mean, that's great, but is that what we want?
Well, I thought we wanted businesses.
We do, but I think we need to put a lot more definition, like Jack said, in the areas, and I think more needs to be talked about with the particular zoning areas.
I mean, this thing got written up by somebody, got a pretty good idea who. It got handed to a council member. He's running with it. What's the next thing? Are we gonna no longer require fire protection if we have pole buildings? Well, then now we gotta put fire protection in. You have to do that anyway. Putting fire protection in Our Savior's Church when it happened, and I was on the building committee, that was a $40,000 ad, and that was 20 years ago. The concept that you're gonna build a commercial building and have it be a pole building. The next logical step is, well, then why do we require fire protection? Well, you do it for a couple of reasons. NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, codes, things like that. I don't know. Like I said, I look at this and I can't think of a worse thing for the few remaining lots that we have down there that have sewer and water to them. And I was not a proponent for this sewer system, but I sure am now, because what else can you do? When you look at, the term in development is the highest and best use, I just don't see loosening up the architectural standards be aiming for the highest and best use.
Well, and first I want to say, I drove from like Ham Lake to Cambridge, and there are a lot of pole buildings on 65 on both sides, so there's a lot of them. That being said, I think Jack kind of had a good idea about making zoning districts that allow for pole buildings, because maybe over in that district over there where the sewer water is, where they are all nice building, plopping a pole building in there might not look so good, but go a little bit north on 65 and I see no problem with plopping them in all over the place, if that's what will bring businesses in here.
I agree with you about possibly having an area that is zoned that way, but you sure don't want it to be Main Street, East Bethel, so to speak. A lot of those are old buildings, much like the east side down from 187th. I mean, there's a lot of pole buildings down there also.
Yeah.
But you know what? At some point in time, those buildings are going to get bought by somebody, and they're going to come in with a backhoe, and they're going to load them up in a dumpster, and they're going to put up a nice building. Whether I see it, I don't know. But it's a lot easier to tear down a pole building because you don't have the investment. Should there be an area in the city? Yeah, maybe there should be. That's something that could be looked at.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
I agree.
If
It's the same thing to me with home businesses. I voted for a number of home businesses when I was on the council, but it always was with the idea that you're going in there on an interim use permit and it's not a conditional use permit, and if you violate it, it'll get pulled. And the whole idea is it's an incubator. You get to start out, and this is where you get to see if you can make it. And there's a lot of home construction companies and things like that. And then there's residential construction companies that have substantial developments. So, I don't know. Like I said, I just would like to see a lot more study being done on this.
I agree.
And I would say if pole buildings would be allowed, that they would have to have their own architectural standards for them.
Yes.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yes, good point.
I mean, especially like.
I got my lot's 3.25 acres. I've been tossing around building a pole building for years and years, and whether I want to do it or not, and the architectural standards, in my opinion, in the residential area are reasonable, but it's in a residential area. That's my whole thing. I thought, you look at all those guys, all those people that have built all those nice buildings back in Bud Sauter's classic commercial park. We don't have a single dog of a building in there, really, there's, there's one small office, single level office building. Other than that, they're all pretty nice buildings in there.
Well, plus, if you mix pole buildings with your traditional buildings like we have built there, it's going to wreak havoc on property values.
Obviously you're preaching to the choir, Mr. Mundell. And the thing that really got me going was when I took a look and I saw the vacant lots are all on the highway. I would guess that those probably at some point in time will have some type of retail use. I don't know. I mean, the whole commercial property business is so, I'm not involved in it, but just watching it just watching it from the sidelines.
Maybe clinic or something like that, medical use, but
Be
Yeah.
more-
true
be-
retail right there, probably
It's still gonna be
not.
more of a service type thing.
Right.
Maybe you might see a motel there, something like that might go in there. But as far as retail on the west side of Highway 65, I don't think we'll see anything over there.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
gonna be more service type oriented businesses, like Julie said, clinics, medical facilities. I don't know if that's a site for a motel or not, but, certain businesses like that, I think would find those sites preferable to what they're looking for.
And even, masonry, steel bar joist buildings get torn down. It was pretty traumatic for me to drive past the shopping mall, a strip mall that I had built one time, and I look over at it, and it's not there anymore. Now there's a bigger bunch of stores that were built there, but when your last name's Cronky, you can do anything you want. You got more money then than, that's Walmart money.
So, do I kind of get a indication that what we're gonna recommend to the planning commission, or at least in the general recommendation, is this thing may need just a little bit more study, and maybe there needs to be certain areas that these, I like to call them post and frame rather than pole buildings. Post and frame buildings can be actually put in, but maybe in the water and sewer services, the definition of where we kind of draw the boundaries and the lines, and let them come up with some language that addresses the situation.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I don't know about more study, but I agree with drawing the lines.
Well, when I say more study, you're gonna have to set up some definitions and make sure everything's clarified as what.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
So if that's what we want, we'll draft up something and we'll send it all out before we send it to the planning commission. If you have any comments, then you can let us know and we can go ahead and see what we want to do to revise them from there then. But we'll send this back to the planning commission on the 23rd, which will be actually a week from today.
okay.
Or a week from tomorrow, I'm sorry.
All right. That brings us to the end. Anything more before we?
Quick council
Oh,
report.
council report, yes, sorry, I'm skipping you.
Got a couple things. Council accepted the 2022 audit report, came back very well. Our town hall meeting went very well. The ice arena is going to get some new flooring, be new padding for the skates areas. It'll be upgraded flooring that will be easier to clean and maintain. Touching on Jack's announcement with the resolution for the Nexus conduit bond. Approving that resolution does not commit East Bethel to the conduit bond or anything yet. It's just the next step. So just want to make that clear. And otherwise, have a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend.
Same to
So-
you.
Yeah, thanks.
Tim, you have anything?
The only thing I gotta add is this Saturday, the Girl Scouts and the Lions are gonna combine and, clean up 22 from East Bethel Boulevard, try to go down all the way down to Wild Rice, so. If
Great.
you see the kids out there, just kinda drive careful, will you? So, that's all.
All right. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
And I'm selling tickets for the seniors if anybody wants any.